What's going on, guys? I'm Ben Bateman.
And I'm Andrew Guy.
And we are the Action Guys.
Right. And today, we are talking about something. It's interesting because we covered Goodfellas on Action Movie Anatomy earlier today. Amazing movie. One of the best movies ever made. Joe Pesci, one of the greatest performances ever in a film. But it was so interesting because you look at Joe and you're like, man, this guy has done... He's done a decent amount of work.
Yeah.
He worked for a while, but you know, you look into it as a guy that didn't want to be an actor, wins for Goodfellas, and then goes back to not really wanting to be an actor anymore.
And releases his third album.
Joe Pesci still singing.
Yeah, and it was an interesting conversation for us just because, really talking about what... I mean, the Oscars are arbitrary. I think everybody kind of realizes that, and... we know that, but I think,
it's still the golden chalice.
It's still the biggest thing, and it's not like every single Oscar winner is the most deserving winner that year, and it's not even like every single great performance even gets acknowledged by the Oscars because you have international
100%.
film and all these other stipulations. But the bottom line is, a higher percentage of the greatest things that have happened in American cinema ever are honored by the Oscars with at least a nomination every year than any other. There's not another group that's ignored on a higher percentage.
No, I mean, you talk about the SAG Awards, you talk about the Globes. They still don't even bat an eye at an Oscar. The Oscar is the true golden trophy. And so we thought about Joe, and it's like, well, there's all these other people that have worked for so long or just done so many incredible roles that haven't won.
Yeah, and it begs the question, how deserving are people of career Oscars versus an actual single performance? Because going, to the deepest, single, they should never have won for it, one-timer, one-hit wonders, Jennifer Hudson, all the way to Cher, through... literally just said two women. That was not my intention.
for the artist, Life is Beautiful.
Yes, there you go. Roberto Benigni and Jean Jorgine, and there's a ton of them. But we're not talking about those today. We think Joe did deserve it. Joe is amazing.
Yeah, Pesci's amazing in the movie. But then you start thinking about these other people that have worked for so long or have been in moments in movies that you're just like, how? How did that not win?
And so we decided we would have a discussion today on the show. Today's episode would be about the greatest working actors today to never win an Oscar. And it started out with just a conversation of the greatest working actors. That's where the idea came from.
Yeah, we just started listing all these people. We're just going to keep talking about the same people we always talk about forever.
And it's fun to talk about a lot of these guys. I think Christian Bale was a big inspiration for the conversation because he's amazing. But we've talked a lot about Christian Bale, and he is honored. He has been honored. He's gotten close to getting that statue more than once. But on the flip side of things, you have a bunch of these other guys who have done a lot of great work, and they haven't quite gotten there. So I think we're going to jump into that topic in just a quick second. I want to remind everybody here, if you're listening, if you're following along, this is on the Collider podcast feed, so be sure to leave a comment, to leave a review on the feed. And if you're watching this on the Collider live channel, leave your thoughts below. Are we way off? Did you agree? Did you disagree? And if you want to follow along with what we're doing, you can find everything we do at Action Industries other than our Twitter, which is at Team Action Show.
Yeah, you guys can find him at Ben Bateman Media. You guys can find me at Andrew Guy. And yeah, this is a really exciting conversation. I think there's going to be some controversy, I think, with people that are listening along, thinking that we might have missed some of their favorites. So like you said, comment below, let us know if we missed anyone out there, if you completely agree with our list, because I really love everyone we have here. We have 3 honorable mentions, 5 people that made the actual top 5, and I guess we should probably just hop into it.
I think maybe let's describe the kind of how we're going to categorize them, the rules, so to speak.
Yeah, so I think the first thing that we talk about is the one that got away, right?
Yeah, the closest they ever got.
It seems like the one that you look at that and you're like, God, how did Ellen Burstyn not win for Requiem for a Dream?
Right.
How?
Sure.
Tell me.
Right.
God damn it. Then there's the Why This?
Yeah.
The one where it's like right after you do a movie that you were nominated for Oscar and you barely lost for, you go and you do Jack and Jill, Al Pacino.
This next thing, or just that moment where you're like, this is, if I could isolate a moment in your career that exemplifies the difference from what you were going for with your Oscar performance, it's this.
Yep.
And then of course finally we're going to answer the question of who we think of this list will win the next Oscar.
And who will never win.
Yeah.
Do you think... Because there's no way. So we have 8 people, like I said, 3 honorables, 5 on the list. There's no way that all 8 people win by the end of their lives, do you think?
No.
There's
I
no
think
way,
it's
right?
highly unlikely. I think if we even got to 50%, we'd be lucky. So I think let's start with the honorable mentions. Let's start with last year's frontrunner for Best Actress, who ended up losing out, and that's going to be Glenn Close.
Cruella de Vil herself.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough one. She's I think had 7 nominations. If you go back and you look, this is kind of crazy because I remember asking her this, and she is the only person in history.
You said she was a sweetheart.
She's
right?
great. Yeah, I interviewed her twice in a couple months, and the second time was that weird carpet where it was freezing. My mouth didn't move, so like everything I said was like, "You did a thing that was." Thank you for talking to me.
Remember when you're the vice president of the United States for Harrison Ford? That was awesome.
I did tell her a story about my grandfather and his invention of the science technology that my grandfather invented Viagra.
It's so funny. Danny Houston's interview is amazing.
And I brought that up
Talking
there
about
as
this.
well. It's a good, it's a nice icebreaker. And I mentioned it to her. And if you look at my IMDb,
I'm on Viagra. I mean,
if you go to my IMDb, there's one trivia fact about me, and it is that from
Really?
from that Glenn Close interview.
that's so cool.
Isn't that funny? So anyway, but if you go back to the beginning of Glenn Close's career, you go to the early '80s when she broke out. Her debut movie, The World According to Garp, in 1982, she gets an Oscar nom for. She also follows
Can
it
you
up.
imagine that?
Well, it
Your
gets
first movie ever.
It gets crazier. She then gets nominated again the next year for The Big Chill in her second movie, and then she gets nominated again the next year for The Natural. Her first 3 years, she had an Oscar nomination in each of them.
And what's so crazy about this, and this is going to be kind of speaking to how we kind of built this list, is like you look at Glenn Close and you look at a start like that. That's the beginning. And I don't care who you are. If you are a working actor that cares enough and is trying, you will always get better over time. How can you not? Practice makes perfect. Movies are practice, essentially. And she's only evolved since then.
Yeah.
You recently just watched The Devil Wears Prada, and
Yeah.
you said she was incredible.
That's Meryl Streep.
Or, not Devil Wears Prada. You recently told me that you watched The Wife, or the movie from last year.
Yeah, The Wife.
And you
Fantastic.
said she was incredible.
Yeah,
It was, and you told me right when you watched it, you go, she's winning.
She's gonna win.
She's
yeah.
gonna win Best Actress.
She was great, and it also was like the career Oscar thing. And you go back to these older movies, and she's wonderful in a lot of these movies. And I think the one that it feels like, well, we're not going to go fully into her career because she's an honorable mention for us. But
Yeah.
it does feel like the closest she got was probably in Fatal Attraction in '87, and she loses to Cher for that one. And she's terrific in this movie, but she loses that one. So Glenn Close feels like she was a career. We almost put her on the regular list, but it does feel like other than The Wife specifically, her last 5, 6, 7 years are a little bit less with sort of big Oscar type of movies. You know, she's Nova Prime and Guardians, and that's relevant, but she's not doing that kind of work as much, it seems like.
Yeah, The Wife was really that moment. I mean, which shows that she's still doing it and that she still can. And she feels like maybe one that
She could get
she
there.
might just never get it.
Yeah, it does feel like this was the closest. So then the next person we have on our honorable mentions list is going to be Amy Adams.
Yeah, Amy Adams, which is kind of the reverse side of the coin in the sense that Amy Adams has had so much love and critical acclaim in her career, but she's also still fairly new, I guess you can say. You know, about a decade.
I think the weird thing about it is when you talk about actors versus actresses, the sexist, ageist sort of nature of Hollywood and the casting process, it means that as an actress you have a couple windows kind of that are the most prominent common windows for you. And when you're getting those like young ingenue leading role type of roles, as an actress, you'll get them somewhere into your 40s if you're a mega super A-list star like Amy Adams. You'll like Charlize, like all these actresses. You'll get them into your mid to late 40s. And then there's a moment when your career starts to turn and you're playing more moms. You're playing more housewives. You're playing characters that are a little bit less of that lead. And so you start having to go for the supporting noms. It's not often you get the Glenn Close, I'm in my late 60s, I get the lead nomination and I'm the front runner. That doesn't happen as much. Amy Adams has had this crazy impressive run, going back to when she first broke out.
In a movie that I actually just watched recently, which is Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Is that what her breakout is?
That's her 99 film. That's her very first movie
debut.
ever. She's
Interesting.
in that. And she's like a sweet, I think if I remember correctly, she's just like a really like innocent, sweet the girl, like one of the contestants.
So and then people remember her fondly in Catch Me If You Can. That's and then when you start to talk in Talladega Nights, but if you talk about the things that she starts to break out as like a real, like I'm going to get Oscar nominations type of actress, it's the run starting in about 2008. It's like Doubt, and then you get like Julie and Julia, and you get The Fighter, and you get The Master. She's in Man of Steel and Her, and she has this really, really unbelievable run. Arrival, obviously, Nocturnal Animals.
Obviously, she's Lynn Chaney as well.
Nice. I mean, the kind of roles she gets, she has an amazing team. She's obviously very, very talented, and she puts herself in position to win over and over and over again.
I almost wonder if she's too good of an actress. Do you know what I mean? She's too good to where she disappears too much.
Yeah, maybe.
Whereas like there needs to be a little bit of flashy showmanship to actually take home the Oscar.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like Amy Adams is such a hardworking, humble actress that she's just like, I don't care if I never stand out. I just want to make sure that I give the most authentic performance ever, and she always does.
I find myself less impressed by her. Less like it's less that I a good or bad. It's more like I'm just like less impressed. But she's fucking awesome.
It's like
as
Annette
Lynn
Bening
Chaney.
was another one that was going to make the list.
Yeah.
And when I think Annette Bening and I go, oh man, that moment when she cleans and gets ready the house at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then later on when she breaks down against the blinds,
Yeah.
you're like, actually that whole movie, just in general, just like every scene she's in, you're like, wow,
Yeah.
that scene deserves an Oscar. So does that scene. So does that scene.
Yep.
And it's because she's a little bit too much, maybe. Whereas if Amy Adams were to do that, I feel like it would have been dialed back just a little bit. And I don't know. There's something about Amy Adams to
It's
where
hard to characterize, but I think she's our second honorable mention,
Yeah.
and then our third honorable mention is
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp, and Johnny Depp is one where there was a moment, and it was in the early to mid 2000s when it was just like Johnny Depp is going to win an Oscar.
100%. Everyone in the world thought he was going to win.
Yeah, when you get nominated for Jack Sparrow, it's that rare kind of nomination. It doesn't happen very often where you're like fully creating a PG friendly character. It's in a movie that's based on a fucking Disney theme park.
And you're like, this character played by anyone else does not get a nomination. Just like Downey in Tropic Thunder, it doesn't work.
It's literally like a creation.
Yep.
He created this amazing character.
That for some reason is just mesmerizing.
Yeah, it's great, and he doesn't win, and it does feel like I've been less impressed with his work the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, like I think about some of the stuff he did. Isn't the movie Transcendence that he's in? You know, I think about a lot of the stuff. I never saw Black Mass, but it does feel like his last 5 or 6 years, it's a little more gimmicky. He's getting a little bit less of the, and also the public perception dropped. So he didn't some of his best years, he sort of didn't really have the support.
And, you know, he's been Jack Sparrow for 16 years now.
Yeah.
You need to let it go. Or, excuse me, 14 years. Because Curse of the Black Pearl comes out in 2003.
Yeah.
And then the most recent Dead Men Tells No Tales comes out in 2017.
17, yeah.
You got to let it go, man.
Yeah.
You got to let it die. And like you said, you know, Sherlock Gnomes, Transcendence, The Professor, Fantastic Beasts. I mean, I don't love Fantastic Beasts. I know some people do, but
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone talk about him in it. He was okay in Murder on the Orient Express.
Sure, and he's in The Tourist a few years ago. and,
I
like,
believe he has the talent.
totally.
I just think he needs to, like, I don't want to say get over himself.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
We talked about Tom Hardy a little bit. He's playing these weird characters all the time, and it feels like Johnny Depp, it's a little bit more like that. He used to play roles back in the day that were like a little bit like when he's in Donnie Brasco is a great example of like where you're like, okay, this guy
Blow?
has what
He's
it
great in
takes.
Blow.
Yeah, and Blow, you know, you're like he just feels a little bit more normal. Obviously, you know, going back to like Public Enemies, that's like the kind of stuff. But in any case, that's our honorable mentions. There's a ton
there's a
of
lot
others.
more. Yeah, there's so many, but we wanted to keep it short and concise. So these 5, we don't have in any specific order, but I think I'm going to start with who we have here at the bottom with Ed Harris.
He's a favorite of the show. He's the favorite actor of all time of Paul DiNuzio,
Yes.
who is the host of Class Action, which is a show now that's on our channel, Action Industries, every week.
We love Ed Harris.
We love Paul DiNuzio.
We love Paul DiNuzio. Ed Harris, it's interesting though because there's been a lot of roles. I mean, when you think Ed Harris, you don't think like movie billboard poster, front of a magazine, anything
No.
like that, leading man. But what you do think about is you all of a sudden you start thinking about Apollo 13 and Pollock and the Truman Show, and you're just like, wow, he just is so great. Gone Baby Gone.
Yeah, if we talk about kind of, you know, where he starts, where he ends up, it's like his breakout is in the mid to late 80s. That's when people start to notice, right? So he's in The Right Stuff in 83. That's an early big role for him. You know, he
Yeah.
gets some real screen time. But then his next like real big one, it's like The Abyss. And then State of Grace, right around 89, 90 is when it all starts to happen. Glengarry, he's amazing. He's great in The Firm. You know, and that's when the Oscar noms start rolling in. You get Apollo 13 in there. You know, he's in Nixon. Obviously, he's in The Rock and one of our favorite.
God, I love him. And we always talk about The Rock and why that movie is more legitimate than a lot of action movies. It's because Ed Harris turns in an award-winning role in this action movie. Like, legitimately, General Francis X. Hummel could have gotten nominated for supporting.
Yeah, and it really does feel like if you look through and you try to figure out, you know, where is the closest he ever got, and what was the closest thing he ever got it does feel like probably his closest was Pollock in 2000 would be my guess. He loses out in 2000, if I remember correctly, to Benicio in Traffic, which is a pretty young Benicio, and I think it's the biopic moment. I think he could have won for Pollock. If it's not Pollock, it might be Truman Show.
Yeah, I mean, so what's interesting about Pollock is I think it's Pollock because Truman Show is Jim Carrey's movie.
Yeah.
And Apollo 13 is Tom Hanks's movie.
Right.
But these are, you look and you're like, holy shit. It's like Ed Harris is in all these great movies. He's in everything right now. Pollock's where he gets, you're in a movie called Pollock where you're Jackson Pollock, and you're also starring as the bad guy in Enemy at the Gates, and you're also in A Beautiful Mind with Oscar winner
He's
Russell
having
Crowe.
his moment.
So that's when he's supposed to win.
I think the other thing, too, is in 98 when he loses because he loses in 98 to James Coburn, which is where I think that.
For what?
Right, for a movie called Affliction. And James Coburn got a career Oscar there. He's a classic Western actor, and he's good. Don't get me wrong. Affliction's a good movie. But that's totally one of those movies where you're like, who ever goes back to rewatch Affliction? The only reason I was even aware that movie existed is because I knew that James Coburn won an Oscar, and I wanted to watch it. And, I've seen The Truman Show 50 times. That's one of people's favorite movies.
Oh, he's so good,
and
man.
he's maybe the best part of the whole movie, to be honest.
I know. When he's
love him as
talking to
Kristoff.
Truman at the end and how much he loves him. He's just trying. And that's what he won a Golden Globe for. He wins the Golden Globe for Truman Show. He gets nominated for The Hours, Pollock, The Truman Show, and Apollo 13. And that's why I truly believe it's Pollock because it's right in the middle. 99 is Truman Show, 2003 is The Hours. So that's when he's supposed to win.
He was lead in Pollock. He's
Jackson Pollock.
So sorry, I for some reason was thinking supporting. So he loses to Russell Crowe, which is where
that's why when you said it, I was like, I'm pretty sure it's just Gladiator. But
where
you know this better than I do.
and you get annihilated by that because you're not going to win for that if you're up against Maximus in the Best Picture.
Yeah,
it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's tough, and it does feel like those years when you have the moment, as Brad Gilmore on the Schmodown mentions your championship window. He's talking about all the factors that go into winning. Momentum, public perception. That's when he had the momentum. He had the public perception. It does feel like now, if you look at his last 10 years, there's good stuff in there. Don't get me wrong. And Westworld is huge and high profile. Everybody saw that. It's got Top Gun Maverick.
But he also picks Geostorm. And he's like the bad guy in Geostorm that betrays the president. Spoiler alert. Sorry if I ruined it for you. But that's like
that movie is ruined before they've watched it.
But that's kind of like, why, man? You don't have to. I know you don't need the money.
Yeah.
I know you didn't read the script and go, holy shit. Curveball, I'm the bad guy. That's his high. What's his low? What's Ed Harris's moment where you're just like, what the hell are you doing, man? I don't know if he has one that kind of hits you in the face.
Like a proper low where you're just like, wow, you did this movie, huh? I mean, it honestly might just be Geostorm. I think
actually, that's fair. That's fair.
It's a fair argument. I mean, I think it could be that. It could be the shameless Oscar hunting movie of Radio. That definitely feels like a movie.
Do you think he ever expected to win, though? Don't you think he just figured, he thought him and Cuba were going to walk away the Oscars in 2004?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, maybe. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else in here that's a clear, you went for it and it didn't work.
I do love that it feels like it is just Geostorm.
Probably.
Why? You did Kodachrome the same year.
People like Kodachrome.
Well, I know, but that's what I mean. You did Mother and Kodachrome the same year you did Geostorm. Again, you don't need to do Geostorm.
He plays a character named Leonard Deckham. It's a good name.
Yeah, it's a sweet name.
I had a good game I was playing yesterday at NFL, my buddy DJ, where we were talking about name the Nick Cage name. Can you name the movie from the character name?
Oh, that's sweet.
Do you know what film he plays Rayford Steele? Rayford Steele. I don't know the answer either. I think it's I think it's one of his last 10 years movies
or whatever.
No, I think it might be Left Behind. But it definitely is a porn name, so
Rayford Steele. So that's the why this is Geostorm. Will he ever win?
Ed?
Will Ed Harris ever win an Oscar?
Well, he's wonderfully into this part of his career that he could actually get easily could get that role tomorrow because everybody still knows how good of an actor he is.
Yeah.
And aside from the fact that his face seems to be shriveling in this in this way that's like, I know like actors get older, but like the pattern of the shrivel is like distracting,
exponential.
He doesn't look like the same guy anymore, but the shape of his body, it's not like he's hunching.
Yeah.
He doesn't look old. He looks the same as he looked 10 years ago. He's got more wrinkles. It just feels like the kind of roles he'd be getting now are a little different. But I mean, all these things we talked about are 2017. He's still right in it. Westworld is so prominent that I think he could honestly get that role tomorrow. He probably feels like, of these people, like one that could still win.
Really? I disagree.
I don't think
For
so.
some reason, I feel like Ed's going to be the Steve Nash. I feel like he's just going to walk away being like, God, Ed Harris was so great and everything he did. Everyone's going to look back and be like, God damn it, we should have gave it to him for this. We should have gave it to him for this.
We should have cast him as Rayford Steele.
We should have cast him as Rayford Steele. I mean, we were Best Picture, but yeah, for me, Ed Harris actually never gets one.
That's brutal.
I know. I'm
Paul's
sad about
so
it.
sad.
Who do you want to go to next?
I'll let you control.
Okay,
You can be
all
the
right.
5-star general here.
All right, that's exciting for me. Then I think for next we have to go to your boy.
No. I mean, Hugh Jackman is what a talent.
You're like, how much time we have left on the show?
I'd like to push Jackman to the end. We could close out the show there. No, I think Jackman would be probably the person on this list that people would be the most surprised by the number of Oscar noms he's had.
Yes,
He has one Oscar nomination in his career, and it is for Les Mis.
which is crazy because
My name is Jean Valjean.
I think 10 years ago,
Yeah.
in 2009, if you tell me that Hugh Jackman should win an Oscar, I tell you you're a moron.
Yeah, right.
Why? Because of what?
Right. If you look at the stuff he's doing around the same time he does X-Men, which is his big breakout. That's where the world knows who he is. And he does 2000, he does 2002, Van Helsing. He's in all these movies that are not. I think when you see him in The Prestige, you're like, oh, this guy's pretty good actually. You're like, oh, this guy's a pretty good actor. But it's just one role though.
Exactly. Because I remember obviously watching X-Men and being like, damn, dude, that guy is yoked. And then watching Swordfish and being like, okay, I'm more of a John Travolta fan and I'm in love with Halle Berry. This guy's fine. Jackman's fine. I know him. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's when he finally does The Prestige, which is funny because actually for me it was The Fountain.
Yeah.
I love The Fountain.
I love The Fountain too, and I don't actually think that The Prestige people go, he's going to win an Oscar. I think people
Neither
are just
of them.
people are like, oh, he's above average. Oh, this Wolverine guy can actually act.
Exactly.
But it's when you get into his post 2010 phase, and he's right. So I think what it is that he does Australia, and people are like, oh, he can sing. I didn't realize Wolverine could sing, and then he does Les Mis, and people are like, wow. So he's like intense, and he can sing, and he can dance.
He can dance, and he's beautiful.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, what are we missing? And then that's where I think his last 5 to 7 years. But I think we've talked about this a lot before. Jackman doesn't have a wealth of impressive roles.
No.
It's the biggest thing that's held him back is that he's done a lot of mediocre movies.
Well, it's funny because it's like you look at this and you think back to mid 2000s. You're like, oh, Hugh Jackman, Van Helsing, X-Men. He's a voice in Happy Feet. He's in Prestige and The Fountain. You're like, that guy is a superstar, movie star, doing anything and everything he wants.
Right.
But then you look forward now to 2020, essentially, and you're like, holy shit, Hugh Jackman is just like this lovable, huggable, wants to dance and sing and entertain you guy that has had to put in his time as a badass in order to do what he actually wants to do.
Yeah, it's funny. It's almost like The Greatest Showman needed to be a little bit less of like a Disney musical feel and a little bit more of a Les Mis. It needed like a little more depth or weight for people to take it seriously.
Right.
It got taken seriously because the soundtrack was like a worldwide phenomenon, but like not because. But then even just the behind the scenes video of Jackman selling it, doing their thing with it.
You're like, that scene wins an Oscar.
I literally feel like Hugh Jackman, if he continues on the path he's on right now, will eventually get an honorary Oscar because the world loves him so much.
How can you not?
But I also think it's totally reasonable that in the next 5 years, he'll be in a musical that'll win him Best Actor. Because he's the guy you want to give that role to, and he could just get it. But like, then you go watch him in Prisoners or Logan, and you're just like,
Holy
bro,
shit.
You're like so good.
You're so good. Or even in like Eddie the Eagle, where he's just the coach. Or honestly, he plays the bad guy in the
Chappie.
In Chappie, yeah, he's the bad guy in Chappie, and even in there, he has like this gross haircut, and he's just total shitweasel. He's so good. He is honestly one of the most talented people out there, and it's just crazy that it's only been over the last 7 years that you're like, wow, he deserves this.
I remember the trailer for Chappie was on television, and we were working at the bar, and you were like, "Is that huge?" You called him huge.
Yeah, I always called him huge.
I thought that was really funny. I would try it. People didn't think it was as funny as I thought. So I only use it around you now. That's
great.
Because it just fails.
I know. I think I referred to him as huge the other day to my girlfriend, and she just ignored it. She just rolled right through it.
He must have just said Hugh. Yeah, he definitely is. But then he does shit like Missing Link, and you're just like, I had so little interest in watching that movie. It looked so
T.J. Miller one
so
or
bad.
whatever.
It's the animated one where he plays Sir Lionel Frost from this year.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, he keeps trying. He's in the front runner. You know, that was a Jason Reitman political kind of thriller comedy. I don't know. Jackman of the guys here does feel like he'll win, and it's because of the fact that the Oscars loves to honor musicals so much, and he feels like he could get it.
I agree. I think,
and he was never close.
I think he will. I think he will win it eventually. I don't know. I guess for me, his low point is probably, I don't know. What do you think is why this? It's maybe in the, because early on you can't really say that to him early on because he's still trying to make his money.
I feel like it's maybe like.
Is it just all of Van Helsing?
I was gonna say it feels like it's probably Van Helsing
because you already have Wolverine.
Yeah,
you don't need Van Helsing also.
Yeah, Van Helsing. It's either like Van Helsing or it also could be like a little later in here, and it could be like Pan. But like I'm making a Peter Pan, like an interesting Peter Pan take that's directed by Joe Wright seems like a fair thing to do.
I think it's Van Helsing.
Yeah.
I think that you don't need it. You already have a friend. The fact that he was able to get away from Van Helsing as well as Ryan Reynolds was able to get away from everything before Deadpool is shocking.
Yeah, he has one of them. I mean, then we talk about the one that got away. I mean, I don't know.
I know.
He doesn't have a one that got away. It's in 2012.
No, the one that I think the one that got away is just Logan for me. I can't believe he didn't win for Logan.
Well, I don't think he was going to ever win for Logan. The fact that he didn't even get nominated for Logan is mind-blowing.
That's the huge insult. But what, Prisoners then? Because I don't think
right?
We've talked about Prisoners.
Exactly.
I've said there's no depth in that role. I mean, there's some depth.
He's great, but yeah, I think honestly, like I think about the one that got away with him, and it's just like,
is it just Les Mis then?
Yeah, but like in 2012 when he loses for Les Mis for lead, it's like what best picture that year was Argo, so best actor that year was like. What the hell was it? Supporting was Christoph Waltz. Supporting actress was Anne Hathaway. It's Lincoln. It's D-Day Lewis for Lincoln. Like he wasn't going to beat Daniel Day-Lewis for Lincoln with that role with Jean Valjean.
Yeah,
and he stole a loaf of bread.
I stole a loaf. Okay. Yeah. So I guess. So what is it? I still say it's Logan. I think that role was absolutely amazing.
Look at his IMDb picture. He's so handsome. Just look at him.
I have it pulled up.
Stop looking away.
I'm looking at it right now.
God, what a talent.
What's his one that got away for you? Is it Jean Valjean?
If we're just talking the best role that he didn't get recognized for, it's definitely Logan.
It's Logan.
You know, even just not getting the nomination for Logan is the crazy one for me.
Yeah, because he didn't deserve to win.
But the weirdest part is we're such big fans, but he actually feels like he's almost the odd man out on this list. He almost feels like he misses the list because
I think he is odd man out.
Right?
I do. Because next up on the list we have someone like Brad Pitt, and it's like, wow, Brad Pitt,
career guy.
That's a guy that will win an honorary Oscar before he's done.
He think
will.
Brad Pitt's just going to win the Oscar this year for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I know. You keep saying that, and it bothers me every time because I think about so many better things that he's done in his career, but it does feel like he needs one before he retires, and if this is when he gets it, this is when he gets it. It's just this role is just like whatever.
It's good. I mean, he's super memorable. He's sweet. He's super.
I don't think he's memorable.
Look, when the movie ended, he was the part of the movie where I was like, Brad Pitt was sweet in this movie. Like,
well, yeah, but you're sitting in the theater. Obviously, you're like, Brad Pitt was sweet in the movie. But I don't remember. I remember him throwing Bruce Lee into the car.
Yeah,
and I just remember him like fucking people up at the end of the movie.
And he has endearing scenes with him and Leo. Like, he's good. But
he's good.
It feels like it's one of those feel good Oscars where people are going to give it to him because they like him and it's supporting. Now, if there's like a crazy knock out of the park role, he might lose. But it does feel like if Brad Pitt can get this close by being in like a total like total like cool guy moment, he'll do it again and he'll just win.
Right, because it's just a Tarantino movie with Leo at your side. You got, of course, Margot Robbie's in the movie, and you're just going to be awesome. So
yeah,
there you go.
Also the other thing too though is like first of all, Brad Pitt has won an Oscar. He's won several, but not for performance.
yes.
Right? It's for producing.
All for producing.
I think the other thing too about Brad Pitt is did you see Ad Astra or no?
No.
So Ad Astra, like the interesting thing about that movie is that I think the movie is above average. I liked Ad Astra. I didn't love it, but I liked it. But he's really good in that movie, and he shows like a vulnerability and a depth in that role that older Brad Pitt has started to pick up. Right. So like I actually remember in the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, thinking even in his small moments, he was getting better at being kind of softer. Like he was getting better at like being a little bit more subtle.
Yeah. He does that really well in Moneyball and in Benjamin Button.
Yeah, I think Moneyball is a strong indicator of like why Brad Pitt is one of the greatest working actors to not win an Oscar. I actually think he's such a better actor than people give him credit for.
He's so good in Moneyball.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy role to be good at.
No.
Because it's just like, just be a dude.
Yeah.
And make sure that this 2-hour-plus movie of dialogue is fucking good.
He's like smart, but he's kind of broken. He's like doesn't have that much respect from the people around him because he's like works for the small market team. He's like there's a lot of scenes like I love when he goes to talk to David Justice and like David Justice is like hitting balls and he's just like, look, Dave, we need to be able to respect each other. And he like talks to people with this real like I am the GM, but also like of the Oakland A's. And you were the star of the Yankees at one point.
Yeah.
So like I know you think I'm nothing. I get it. But you need to hear me, and we need to respect each other to get this to work. He has these great scenes, like when he pulls Jonah Hill out, and he's just like, "What the hell just happened?"
Yeah,
you know.
What did you just say to him in there?
Yeah, like Moneyball is such a strong indicator for people of like what Brad Pitt's capable of with the right material.
And that's just a few years after what he does in these other movies, which is Burn After Reading. He's just airheaded physical trainer that's amazing. You got Inglourious Bastards, where I think that might be maybe just Tarantino's best trailer he's ever made because of the speech of Brad Pitt.
Right.
And I want them scalps.
Yeah,
Everyone knew that.
Totally. I mean, Benjamin Button is right in there. It's right before that.
I think the one that got away for Brad Pitt, the one where he really should have won an Oscar for, is it just Fight Club? Like, is it?
It's like if the world had paid attention to that movie in 1999, would Brad Pitt be lead or would he be lead or supporting in that movie?
I think you can argue for either, but I think you probably give him supporting depending on what you're going up against.
So he either in '99 he beats Michael Caine and Tom Cruise for Magnolia and The Cider House Rules. Cider House Rules wins, but Cruise loses.
That's all supporting. Yeah,
it's all supporting. And if he's lead in '99, then he has to beat Kevin Spacey in American Beauty.
Right, but that's. It's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about him.
Yeah, I mean, I think like in terms of career-defining role, most memorable, it is that role. I think if you're talking about the role that he was the best in the year where something won that you scratch your head about.
Legends of the Fall.
I was going to say it's Moneyball. It's 2011 because he loses in 2011 to Jean Dujardin for The Artist. And it's like, he's great in Moneyball. That was a big movie. People watched that movie. They loved it. His public perception at that point, you just mentioned the things he was coming off of. Brad Pitt that was a moment for him. He was old enough. He had done it. It's before his producing career takes off. That was the moment.
And I actually don't think that he's that great in 12 Monkeys. I think he's just eccentric and people liked it because he's handsome.
And it's early.
They didn't know who he was yet. The one that got away for Brad Pitt for me, or the why this, honestly, the people didn't hate these movies that much, but it's basically all these war movies he's done recently.
Sure.
It's War Machine and it's
Fury.
It's those two. Those are the two where I'm just like, you literally just did Inglourious Bastards. You don't need to go do this.
Right.
Why?
Right.
You're not going to win anything for it. You're not going to get... I mean, I guess maybe it's just fun for you, but it made no sense to me. Yeah,
there's like the period in his career where I think like, why this? Because we talk about that run in there. I mean, again, like you look at all the movies he was making, like Babel, like I think for me, probably the thing that swings Brad Pitt into like, he's just kind of a ridiculous meathead is like, I don't think he needs to be in Troy. I mean, he's in Troy and that movie is what it is, but looking back at it, he looks like he's about to just step onto the set of a porn. Yeah. He's going to go and like do it for a few hours.
And that run, though, is exactly that. It's Ocean's 11, Troy, Ocean's 12, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. These are the things he's doing right there. It's almost like he just checks out for a few years, and it's just like, I just want to have fun.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's other stuff here in the 2000s that feels, but most of what he's done the last few years just doesn't really feel necessary.
Yeah.
Like Killing Them Softly is another one that's just like, why?
I guess we'll see with World War Z, too, if somehow it's amazing, but I really doubt it.
I doubt it, yeah. He feels like he got closest probably in 2011, even though I don't think he really had a shot.
Do you think that it's now or never? with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Or do you think it's now and then later?
I mean, the weird thing is, we just talked about this with Amy Adams, but it's like, so Brad Pitt gets to take his shirt off at 55 in a movie and like still be in incredible shape and play like really cool guy sex icon in his mid 50s.
Right.
How many more years is Brad Pitt going to be able to pull that off and get honored for those kind of roles where there's like real like sex appeal momentum behind your nomination and instead of just pure chops? Can't be that much longer.
I want him to win after that.
Yeah.
I want him to not be that guy.
Yeah. So I think, but that's a harder space to play in because now you're Brad Pitt and you're playing against the Tom Wilkinsons of the world. You're playing against those people
But
who
they're
are
still always going to be 15 years older than you. Like, imagine
Yeah.
a broken Brad Pitt at 55 or whatever, and like that's what you see. Instead of he's still good looking, but it's like you look at The Way Back with Affleck.
Yeah.
What if that's just Pitt?
Yeah.
I'd be down.
Totally. So I think I think there's a real shot. But I also just know when you look at his producing credits the last few years, it's like
He knows what's up.
he's just like I think on some level Brad Pitt must be looking at his life and just being like, I produced like 3 of the last 8 Best Picture winners. I'm in some of those movies.
Right.
Everything I produce that's supposed to be a big Oscar movie gets nominated. And I don't care.
And
won
I just don't want to
several
try that
Oscars.
hard anymore.
I
Yeah.
was the biggest actor in the whole world.
I was the sexiest man alive for a decade.
And now, if I want to be in a cool movie, I'll be in it. And otherwise,
No one's cared more about anyone's relationships, but they cared more about both of mine. It's like he's already accomplished so much other than just the Oscar.
didn't we do? I think we might have even done an episode on here, Brad Pitt over under proper. I can't remember if it was this show or it was the
I've
other
just
show.
been a segment on the other show.
But it does feel like he's underrated.
Yeah, it still
It does
does.
feel like. So I just think that Brad Pitt definitely has to be in the conversation. And I think he'll win this year. I'm guessing.
Yeah. So, next up, Michelle Williams. This is a weird one because, you talk about Annette Bening and Glenn Close not being on the list, and then you say, well, Amy Adams also isn't on the list because she's young and she's only been. Michelle Williams is all these. We've literally just contradicted ourselves for the last 30 minutes, but it's just the weight that Michelle Williams, those scenes I talked about that Annette Bening has had
Yeah.
that I didn't feel like Amy Adams does.
Yep.
Michelle Williams has that in every movie. You think
mean-
about Brokeback, you think about Blue Valentine, you think about Manchester by the only reason Manchester by the Sea is watchable is because of that one scene with her.
Yeah, I mean, in her last few years too, like she keeps turning them in, I mean, you talked about Manchester, she's in My Week with Marilyn. You talk about she has that great scene in Shutter Island that I love.
She's like a pure artist. She did all the reshoots for All the Money in the World for basically for free. Might as
Totally.
well have been for free at her level of stardom and notoriety and money. She just basically did it for free.
It's pretty wild the work she does, and she just continues to turn the stuff in. I mean, people have talked about her on Fosse Verdon as like amazing. I haven't watched the show, but like she definitely is somebody. She's on my short list, and she's somebody who, when you think about the work she does and who she's up against and the years of her career she's been doing it,
Yeah.
she just feels like she's absolutely going to win.
And the titles, like the movies she picks, you go back and you look through her filmography, there's just so many of these odd gems. You're like, oh yeah, Brokeback, Schenectady, New York, Blue Valentine. She's great in Shutter Island, My Week with Marilyn. There's not a lot of those big blockbuster movies in there. She picks things that really showcase how great of an actress she is.
Yeah, and I mean, she comes out, she's in movies, and then she's in Dawson's Creek, and that's that's like the big breakout for like 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she's with Heath Ledger, she's part of that whole tragedy. Then starting in 2005 with Brokeback, she has a really amazing last 15 years. I mean, she feels to me, and if you want to talk about the one that got away, the closest she got, I mean, 2016 supporting, I'm pretty sure 2016 supporting went to Viola Davis for Fences. Does that sound right? I know she
Maybe.
won.
That sounds-
I'm pretty certain it was 2016. And that feels like she could have won for Manchester. She's really, really awesome in Manchester.
That's so Emma wins lead and Viola wins
When supporting, yeah. And then if you go back to 2005 and you figure out, it's possible that Brokeback should have been where she got it because Rachel Weisz got it that year for The Constant Gardener. Mm-hmm. Just kind of one of those movies where you're like, I watched it pretty recently and it's like, this is pretty forgettable. It's all right, but
So for me, it's actually a big one because Black Swan was huge when it came out.
yeah.
She's supposed to win for Blue Valentine. That's the one. You
Yeah.
watch that movie, she's heartbreaking. It's so That movie is so beautiful, and
Yeah.
it's because the performances from them are so authentic. I mean, her and Gosling lived together for a month before they even started shooting that movie. They did rehearsals like they did back when, for plays, like, what Sam Mendes did with American Beauty. They did rehearsals for weeks, and you could really, really see it in that role. And I love Portman and Black Swan, but I do feel like that's just a bit of the hype train. Getting
moment?
caught up in the hype train.
I've never seen Blue Valentine.
Really?
Yeah, I've never watched it.
Oh, dude, do you want to cry?
I've heard it's like the
You should
saddest
watch it
movie
tonight.
in the world.
It's just like, think about watching a couple fall in love and you're like, I want to be them.
Yeah.
And then watch their life deteriorate and their marriage fall apart, and then they,
That's what I keep hearing Marriage Story is. That's what everybody keeps telling me Marriage Story is.
What's that? Which one's that one?
It's the new one with ScarJo and Adam Driver.
Oh, I heard it's amazing.
Supposedly
I heard she's
it's,
amazing.
Supposedly it's that.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
give out tissues at the screenings, apparently.
Yes, I've heard about this.
Yeah. So I agree. I mean, I think she's on my short list. If I was going to point to the actress that hasn't won yet, that should
Definitely.
win and will win, she's probably leads this whole list. I honestly think she's the top of the list for a person who I think will win.
Yeah, and I think that's why she edged out the other women that we talked about before, is because it feels like Michelle Williams will win an Oscar within the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think so.
More so than maybe almost anyone on this entire list other than this last person, which is Joaquin Phoenix.
And this is, if we're talking about the person on the list where you scratch your head and you're like, how's it even possible at this point? It's him.
Yeah.
It's because he's just
Everything
a pure artist.
He, like, you talk about what Daniel Day-Lewis was back in the day. Joaquin is the new, improved, facelifted version, and I don't think I ever imagined myself saying that because I love Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
But I haven't loved the things that he's done. I didn't love Phantom Thread, didn't love Lincoln. I just don't really care as much, whereas it's like Joaquin's roles get more and more and more interesting.
I mean, his last couple years, you've obviously got Joker as the big one right now. You go back to You Were Never Really Here, which is a movie, a Lynn Ramsey film that everybody talked about, that everybody was hyped on.
Yeah, that's
total-
when that was the whole, like, pranking everyone where it looked like he was, like, quitting.
No, that's
That's
I'm not
really
I'm not
here.
here. Yeah. I'm still here.
Or I'm still here, yep.
And then you look at like the stuff like Her, which is obviously unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
You look at The Master, which is so good, and he's so good in it. Two Lovers. You keep going back, and it's
Inherent
like,
Vice. Even though if people don't like that movie, he's crazy in it.
Walk the Line, like Brother Bear. And I'm just kidding.
God, he's you haven't seen Walk the Line. He's
Never seen it.
so good in Walk the Line. He's good in Hotel Rwanda.
You go
he's
back
good
to
in The Village.
You go back to the movie that put him on people's radars in a real way, though.
100%.
It's Gladiator.
It's Gladiator.
And I mentioned this to someone yesterday talking about memorable villains, and he was like, I've never hated someone in a movie as much as I hated him in that movie.
Who was this? Who was this person?
My buddy DJ.
I love it.
And he was like, I remember seeing it and just thinking like, when he's talking about like what that happens to his wife and son,
Yeah.
and he's just like,
You hate him.
he's like so evil.
Legitimately hated Joaquin Phoenix as a human being until Walk the Line, I think.
Yeah.
I think even when I saw him in The Village and in Signs, I was still like, I hate you, Commodus. I hate you. Like, Gladiator is my favorite movie of all time, and it's because it's where I coined the term, to have a great movie, you have to have a great villain. It's because of Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, and I think you just look at what he's done in the years since, and it does feel like he's the actor who he chooses movies, but it's less even about the movies necessarily every time, and more just about what he adds to the movie. I mean, he honestly goes toe to toe with PSH in The Master.
He does,
which is impossibly hard to do. He's talking to Scarlett Johansson's voice in all of Her.
And it's heartbreaking.
And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
He's acting with a voice. He's not even acting with a person pretty much the whole movie.
And then, like, you go and you watch Walk the Line, and, Reese wins for that movie, but he should have won also. He's so good as Johnny Cash, and the drug moments that he has, the struggles in that movie, the singing and the guitar playing alone are amazing.
You think about what he did with Joker, and it's like Joker is if he gets nominated for Best Actor, no one will be surprised. If he wins, it would blow my mind. But he doesn't get the good fortune that Ledger got of, I'm the villain and I'm in 16 minutes of this movie and I get to play off of a story that's led by this other guy. So all my scenes, I get to be the thing that you're worried about. He is the movie.
He is.
He has to be a psychopathic killer in this movie and still convince
just
you.
him.
And he does it, and he steals the show. I truly believe he is. If Michelle Williams is the actress on this list that's going to do it, he's the actor.
100%.
It seems impossible in my mind that he wouldn't win.
If Joaquin Phoenix doesn't win an Oscar by the time he's done acting, it's because he doesn't win for Joker and he passes away in the next before the next big
Or
movie.
he just continues to
Or he
take
quits.
like, weird roles.
No, I don't think so. I think even if he takes weird roles in like 20 years somehow, there's still be one within the next 20 years where he wins.
Yeah.
I literally think he has to either pass away or retire to not win an Oscar before the end of his career.
Fair enough. Fair point. What's the one that got away?
The one that got away for Joaquin, it might be Gladiator, dude. I honestly... No, it's not. It's Walk the Line. It's
Yeah.
100% Walk the Line.
Because, yeah, and so in 05, Walk the Line, for lead actor, he loses to Jamie Foxx. No, that's the previous year. 2004 is Jamie Foxx. 2005 is not a movie where everybody wins. It's like, that's the Syriana year. It's the Syriana Constant Gardner year.
So in 2005, trying to pull it up here.
Oh, it's Philip Seymour Hoffman for Capote. That's who he loses to.
Oh, yep, yeah.
So I mean that's like, again, you're talking about one of the best to ever do it, and he's in this.
So you're talking David Strathairn, Good Night and Good Luck.
Yeah,
Terrence Howard for Hustle and Flow,
yeah.
and then Philip Seymour Hoffman, Heath Ledger, and Joaquin Phoenix. Brokeback and Capote. And it's tough to not just give it to Philip because it's like you watch him and Capote and you're like, that guy, like who?
Like, that's not. Yeah,
who is that?
Yeah, like that's not Philip Seymour Hoffman. That's this other thing. And,
Yeah.
and then even to say that he would have beaten Ledger. I mean,
I know.
they didn't give Ledger credit yet. He wasn't getting the credit he deserved for that role yet.
The end of Brokeback,
Yeah.
with the jacket.
Yeah.
I could cry talking about it right now.
So it's so good.
And and again, it speaks to him. Even he was like telling Ang Lee, he's like, we need to switch the jacket and the shirt.
Yeah.
We have to do it. It wouldn't be right. That's how much of an in-tune actor he is. And it's so sad that two of these guys are gone.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's crazy. Why this? Does Joaquin have a why this?
Well, I think it's probably the I'm Not There movie. Or I'm Still Here.
It's like the whole fake retirement thing.
the whole thing. The weird acting, the like.
Oh, didn't he have that Letterman freak out
He
or
has the
whatever's
freak
on
out.
there?
There's like
and-
the production of that movie has all the Casey Affleck stuff associated with it. Like
which stuff?
all Casey Affleck's sexual misconduct
that's
stuff.
all-
That's all in that movie.
Okay.
Like it's definitely a movie where you're just like, I think this probably didn't need to happen. You look what he was doing 2-3 years before it and 2-3 years after it, and you're like, yeah, you probably could have just because it's Two Lovers in 2008, the James Gray movie, and then he picks back up in 2012 with The Master. He has 4 years off with the only movie as I'm Still Here. What would we have
Yeah.
gotten from Joaquin if he had done more movies in the 4 years there? If he just continued being an actor instead of like a fake retirement movie?
I remember that because I was in college when that was going on, and we were all fans of him. We were like, "What the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
Why is this
Is he
happening? What a
rapping?
weird
What is
dude."
this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think that makes sense. That's the why this. Like, what the hell were you doing? Maybe he needed, or maybe who knows? Maybe he needed that time off to
Yeah.
come back and become what he is now.
He definitely seems like a proper artist. Like, definitely somebody who takes himself pretty seriously. So
So yeah, guys, that's our list. Those are our top 8 with 3 honorable mentions, and I think Ben and I are both in complete agreement that Michelle Williams and Joaquin Phoenix are most assuredly to win Oscars before the end of their careers. And then you strongly believe that Brad Pitt wins one this year. I think he probably wins one by the time he's done. For sure.
it just feels like So if we're gonna look on the list of the people we think will never get there, I mean, maybe in retrospect, thinking about it more and more, it is Ed Harris.
It is
probably
Ed,
he probably
yeah.
never gets there, which is crazy.
I know he's so good. I love him. I love him in everything that he's in. But it does feel like Ed Harris won't. And if Jackman doesn't by the end of his career, I won't be surprised, but I'll definitely be sad.
Yeah, I just think for him it'll be a musical. He's better suited for it than most. And Hollywood will always go back.
It
to
is one of these classic musicals like Cats or something that no one has made
They'll
a
remake
rendition of yet, or something,
Oklahoma or
like Singing in the Rain.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what it'll be. Hugh Jackman will win for Singing in the Rain, the remake.
Exactly. Or An American in Paris, or like
Yeah.
some movie like that. We'll remake this thing from the 50s that won Best Picture, and we'll do it again. Jackman's the lead; he'll win. Mm-hmm. So anyway. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the show today. Be sure to check out Action Industries on YouTube. We have a special debate show, this face-off we're doing called Commanding the Army in Action Face-Off. We're doing it this Sunday, December 1st on our own YouTube channel. You get to debate movie topics like movie fight style against Drew or myself. Whichever one of us is not debating is judging the thing. And if you're a patron at patreon.com/teamaction, that's how you qualify. There aren't that many patrons, so all you got to do is be a patron at any level. Send an email to actionindustriesbrand@gmail.com letting us know that you want to compete with the subject line Action Face-Off. This next week, we have 2 different topics we're choosing from. Just pick your top 2 choices for either of them, and you might get it. Those 2 topics are what's the best movie of the 2010s, the best movie of the decade. The other one is what is the best Martin Scorsese film. If you want to debate one or both, send in your submission to actionindustriesbrand@gmail.com. Be a patron at patreon.com/teamaction, and you will hear from us toward the end of the week to confirm. You'll be doing this thing live streaming on our YouTube. You'll be fighting against me. Drew will be judging.
Yeah, it's a great way to get on camera. It's a great way to hang out with us and the other amazing patrons out there. Check out youtube.com/actionindustries. We have an episode up on there that we shot last week, so you can check that out. And thank you guys so much for hanging out. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy eating everything I know that we're going to.
Yes.
And we'll be back next week, same time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.